Hello, I made this video weeks ago and I didn't put it out because I saw an article in The Guardian that said that all the criticism of Amber Heard and the way she comes across is putting people off coming forward and talking about how they've been abused. So that is the kind of thought that literally kept me up at night. You know, I thought, oh my God, what if even just one person, what if one person watches one of these videos and thinks no one's going to believe me? So, you know, I really hesitated. And then I thought more about it. And that was when I made the last video I put out. So if you haven't seen it, please have a look. And that was talking about all of the evidence, you know, all of the lies that Amber Heard appears to have told. And I want to say has told because, you know, that's what I think. But I guess if we're being really politically correct about it, we'd have to say, well, either she's telling multiple lies or all these different people are lying, you know, like the police officers, the police officer trained in domestic violence and so on, and the doctor and the nurse and all these other people. But anyway, I talk about that more in the other video. The reason I went ahead in the end, weeks later, and have decided to put this video out is because the reason I started making these videos in the first place years ago was about Amber Heard's abuse of Johnny Depp. So that is what this video is about. Yes, I'm picking apart the way she comes across, but the reason I'm doing that is because this is a smear campaign. Sorry about the cat. If I wait for her to stop talking, you know, it's going to be dark by the time I make this video. So bear in mind when you watch this video that I'm picking apart the way she comes across, but it's because of all of the evidence that shows pretty clearly, in my opinion, and I think in most people's opinions, that she's lying over and over again. What she's doing is really abusive. You know, telling the world that Johnny Depp has done all these things that he hasn't done. And I'm not saying that he hasn't done anything. I'm not even saying that he hasn't hit her because we don't know that. But we do know that she's told multiple lies about what he has done. Amber Heard didn't say he in this sentence.
And slapped me across the face.
It's a lot easier to come across as genuine if what you say is true. So by missing out that word, she's not telling a lie because she's not saying that he did it.
And I, for the first time, hit him. Like, actually hit him. Square in the face. He didn't push my sister down the stairs.
In this example, something is missed out again. She's saying something that seems true. He didn't push her down the stairs. But she hasn't joined those two sentences.
And I, for the first time, hit him. Like, actually hit him. Square in the face. He didn't push my sister down the stairs.
If there was never a risk that Johnny was going to push her sister down the stairs, then it would be a lie to pretend that that was a risk. So by not including that part of the sentence, and so as a result, he didn't push her down the stairs or something like that, by not doing that, she's not having to lie.
And all my time of being in that relationship to that point, hadn't even landed one on Johnny. Sure, I had tried to fight back, threw my arms, flailed my arms, hit whenever I could to try to block blows myself, but never landed anything. And Johnny kind of looked stunned and then laughed at me and then lunged at me again. And before I know it, security stepped in between us and pulled Johnny away. Stepped in between us and pulled Johnny away.
8 ands gives her plenty of time to think. And I reckon the reason she needs this extra time is because she's changing the story. That the security guard did pull them apart, but that he wasn't pulling Johnny away from her. That's not how he remembers it. He was pulling her away from him.
Stepped in between us and pulled Johnny away. And I went upstairs with my sister and we locked the door, and I could just hear all this commotion happening in Penthouse 5. I could hear him raging, destroying my things. I could hear it.
Why would you repeat that? Why is the emphasis on here?
I could just hear all this commotion happening in Penthouse 5. I could hear him raging, destroying my things. I could hear it.
It's as if she's preempting that people are not going to believe what she's about to say.
And at some point I saw it the next day.
My feeling about this is that she might have picked up on what I've just picked up on. That it sounds a bit weird to have emphasised I could hear it and to have repeated it like that. So she seems to be trying to balance things out now by saying that she could also see it.
I could just hear all this commotion happening in Penthouse 5. I could hear him raging, destroying my things. I could hear it. And at some point I saw it the next day.
And all of this attention to how she's coming across is quite suspicious to me. People, when they're lying, tend to put a lot of attention into the extra details that aren't necessary.
He had me by the hair and dragged me the rest of the way from the office into the neighboring room, the neighboring apartment. I remember the door that connected these two rooms had a metal grate, not a grate, but a metal bottom, metal floor that separated it. It's a big, heavy bank door. And I remember he was dragging me, and I removed my hands from my head and kind of tried to grab onto the metal door to prevent him from dragging me into the room. But I couldn't stop him. He dragged me all the way from that carpet. I was trying to get free of his grasp. I was trying to stop him from pulling me. I remember feeling the carpet and the metal.
I don't know if Amber Heard's lawyers have instructed her to talk about the things that she saw to try to make it all as believable as possible, if that's why she's talking about the metal of the door and so on. If she was dragged, as I understand the meaning, dragged so that she's not on her feet anymore, then she would have lost hair. You know, if he's just pulling her by her hair, because she would be too heavy not to, I would think.
You testified that in December of 2015, Amber called you over to her apartment so that you could check her out. Is that a correct statement? You testified to that?
Yes.
This is one of Amber Heard's friends. Apparently she slept with her. I don't know if that's true or just a rumour. If it is true, then I guess it might give her a bit more reason to either lie for Amber Heard or be honest. So we could kind of look at it both ways, because at the moment they're not, they're no longer friends. But the fact that she has already gone to court and said all this stuff means that if she goes against it now, she'll be perjuring herself. So it kind of makes sense that she would stick to whatever she said in the past when she was Amber Heard's friend. Something about her testimony seems doubtful to me.
Okay, my question was, after you arrived, you observed injuries to Ms. Heard, right?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing that her head was bloody, where a chunk of hair had been ripped out of the back of her head?
Yeah. Yes.
The way she seems teary without any tears. The way she turns her head away from the camera. And how she keeps avoiding the question about whether there was blood on Amber Heard's scalp.
Do you remember seeing that her head was bloody, where a chunk of hair had been ripped out of the back of her head?
Yeah. Yes.
Was her head actively bleeding when you saw her?
At this point, if it was bleeding, you'd think she would just say so.
Was her head actively bleeding when you saw her?
It was, it wasn't like dripping down her head, but it was raw and red.
You can hear the way she seems to change her story at the end and suddenly say that there was blood there.
Was it actively bleeding, if you remember?
Define actively bleeding.
Was there blood?
Yes.
How could you tell hair had been ripped out of her head?
There was a bloody patch with hair missing.
Turning her head away from the camera and then hiding her mouth with her hand. Those are ways to kind of shield yourself from the lie you're telling. People often do that when they lie. You know, they either don't make eye contact or they find a way to try to hide their face. Because we know instinctively that people are quite good at telling when other people are lying. So we want to try and hide the evidence.
How could you tell hair had been ripped out of her head?
Unconsciously, we're always trying to put a barrier between the lie and the other person to protect ourselves. So sucking your lips in is like trying to keep the lie in. And it's really interesting to watch her expression, that she, you know, the way she looks to one side and as she's caught there, she doesn't know what to say, it seems to me. And then she decides to go with contempt. So she's laughing at the lawyer to deflect, so the focus isn't on her anymore. That's how I see it anyway. This was the hair that was supposedly ripped out of Amber Heard's head. You can see there's no blood on it. And I'm sure the lawyer covered this. I didn't actually see this little bit of the trial. I saw pretty much all of it, but I didn't see what Johnny Depp's lawyer said. I'm sure she would have pointed out that there was no blood on it. And you can't see the roots of the hair there. It looks very short as well. It looks kind of like a bit of chopped off hair, rather than, you know, because Amber Heard's hair was long at the time. So that's quite suspicious too. People have said that they think it was her hair extensions that she took out. Maybe it was. And in the picture, we don't see any blood, and it doesn't look particularly raw either. There is a bit of a kind of reddish look to it, but that could be anything. You know, that could be that she's got a sensitive scalp and she needs a special shampoo or something. This appears to be the same image, but there's a different filter on it, or there isn't a red filter on it if that's what was on the other photo. And again though, I don't want to rule out that something did happen, because maybe it did, maybe he really did pull her hair. It's all the lies she's told so far that make me really question that. My feeling is that she says some things that are true and intertwines them with some things that aren't. When you say a lot of things that are true, then people are going to believe those things, or they're quite likely to, because you're going to say them in a very natural way. So if you then talk a little bit about other things, then people are more likely to believe those other things.
And he kneels on my back with one leg, and I was trying to fight him off me because I was face down on the bed top, and he wrestled me down, kind of trying to hold me down with his knee on my back, and he's punching me with a closed fist, punching me repeatedly. And I don't remember even feeling the pain. I just remember the sound of Johnny's voice. He got next to my ear and he was screaming over and over and over again. Each time it sounded louder and more desperate. I hate you.
If he got next to her ear and was screaming into it, the pain of her ear and the fact he was screaming into it, that would have been more memorable than the sound of his voice and how desperate he was.
I just remember the sound of Johnny's voice. He got next to my ear and he was screaming over and over and over again. Each time it sounded louder and more desperate. I hate you. I hate you. Over and over. Hate you. And then pounding the back of my head. He just hit me over and over and over again, and I got really still. And it felt in my body like quiet. And I thought, this is how I die. He's gonna kill me now, and I'm not. He's gonna kill me, and he won't even have realized it.
I can only go off what feels believable intuitively. So obviously take this with a pinch of salt. And I think that he probably did shout, "I hate you," repeatedly, or "I fucking hate you," which I think is what keeps being bleeped out.
And he was screaming over and over and over again. Each time it sounded louder and more desperate. I hate you. I hate you. Over and over. Hate you.
I think that goes with the idea that he sounded more and more desperate, as she says, because that's what someone might well shout, and shout it desperately when they're being abused and when they've been having to deal with a Jekyll and Hyde character. So when they've had their hopes dashed over and over again, and then been love bombed and then been hurt again, that amounts to torture. Abuse is about power, about overpowering someone, and desperation is about feeling weaker.
Each time it sounded louder and more desperate.
So desperation, that doesn't sound, and getting more and more desperate, that doesn't sound like an abuser. Abusers don't get more and more desperate. They ensure more and more that they are in control.
Over and over. Hate you. And then pounding the back of my head. He just hit me over and over and over again.
So according to her, he told her he hated her loads of times and screamed it in her ear, and then he started hitting her. To me, this seems like an afterthought from her, because, this is, I feel like I'm on fairly dangerous ground here, because this is just me, this just feels wrong to me. That doesn't mean that it is wrong, but the idea that he's shouting over and over again, "I fucking hate you," without actually doing anything, and then when he's got all that off his chest, he then starts to hit her, just seems a bit weird. Because you'd think that while he's saying it and he just can't stop saying it, if that was when he couldn't control himself, you'd think that's also when he'd be punching her. So it seems to me like this is an afterthought, like she hasn't got the story together.
Over and over. Hate you. And then pounding the back of my head, and I got really still.
When she says, "I got really still," this sounds like someone else's view of her. It's how she would have looked to someone else. You don't describe yourself as still, you describe someone else as still. So it's more like what you see when you're watching a film. You might say, "I stopped trying to fight him." And so when you stop trying to fight him, maybe your body does become still, or "I gave up," or "I blanked out at that point." Or you might say, "I just lay there," or "I stopped moving." But it would be unusual to say, "I got really still," or even "I became really still." Have you ever heard anyone say that before?
I thought, this is how I die. He's gonna kill me now, and I'm not. He's gonna kill me, and he won't even have realized it.
If she really did think he is going to kill me now, then I think that's something that it would be hard to ever really talk about. I mean, when I think there was a time when I nearly died, in a sort of on a cliff edge, when I was, when I'd been walking, and I got stuck on a cliff as I was trying to go up the cliff to safety, and all these waves were going over me, and I had to be airlifted by a helicopter. But and it was really frightening. I had hypothermia, and I really did very nearly die. I was extremely lucky. I had some PTSD from that. For about 2 weeks, I would keep seeing the sea, keep seeing these huge waves coming at me day and night. and I developed a fear of water. So I had to take myself to a swimming pool to get over that fear. And if I have to talk about that, I mean, I'm talking about that now in vague, you know, quite vaguely, but if I had to talk about the details of that, and really describe exactly what was happening and when it was happening, I would, you know, feel the emotion of that time. I wouldn't be able to say it without that, because when you're about, you know, that a memory of thinking you might die is something that stays with you always. And yet, but the way that she's saying it, it doesn't feel like she is with the, you know, that she is feeling emotions about it as she's saying it. And I know she's presenting emotions, but my own feeling is that she's not actually feeling them.
They kill me now, and I'm not. He's gonna kill me, and he won't even have realized it. Won't even have realized it.
But at the same time, she doesn't seem to be dissociating. She seems very focused on what she's saying, and she seems to have very strong emotions, even though they don't seem real. And when you dissociate, little cat. And when you dissociate, you escape those emotions. So you wouldn't come across as emotional. So you wouldn't come across as emotional. Are you going to stop talking, Danny? Because I'm making a video. It just doesn't feel like she was really there. It feels like she can switch that emotion off too quickly. And again, I can't say that for sure. None of us know. Only she does. And Johnny Depp does. I'm going to leave it here and carry on in the next video, which I'm going to put out either today or tomorrow. I'm cramming videos in at the moment because these are, you know, these are videos that I wanted to put out a long time ago. Here's a snapshot of the next video. A highly manipulative person who's lacking in empathy. They'll be really good at studying someone and really learning about how they tick, you know, and they will copy the other person in order to bond with them so that the other person will trust them. So they'll think, oh, they're just like me. But actually they're not. They're nothing like them. They're just studying them. So they try to emulate the same emotions that they see other people experiencing. But because they don't experience those feelings with them, because they don't empathize, they find it really hard to do that. And because they haven't been through that themselves. So, and that's what I see in Amber Heard. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and I'll see you then.